Welcome in, gamers. As you've probably guessed, we're going to be going back to Baldur's Gate 3 for today's video. But this won't be another build guide just yet. I will be continuing with those. But for today's video, we're going to be looking at the hidden items in Baldur's Gate 3. Items that have been programmed into the game, but are not typically available to the player through normal gameplay. Now, the reasons for hiding these items in the game will vary. Some are absolutely game-breaking, some are purely cosmetic, some might be reserved for exclusive enemy use, and some might be tied to functionality that was developed somewhat but never fully implemented within the game. Whatever the reason, Larian decided to remove player access to these games without removing them from the game entirely. Now, for the sake of simplicity, I'll be ignoring what I consider to be the less interesting items, but I'll include a link in the description to a resource that will tell you all about all of the items that are still available within the game code. So we'll be skipping over things like purely cosmetic armor, like the Phasmid cloak, or items that exist just to give the NPCs some variety, things like the multiple Githyanki half-plate pieces, and others that have been replaced by a functionally identical item with a different model or name, like the Moonblade, which is just a +1 longsword in Baldur's Gate 3. So, without any further banana rambling, let's jump right in and take a look at the gear. So here we have our model. I'm just going to be showcasing our wonderful, inaccessible items. I've already gone through the effort of putting them in his inventory. We can go through these in any order. I've just kind of categorized them a bit. Let's start by taking a look at this helmet. Helm of Arcane Gate. Pretty unique looking model there, and gives you the ability to cast a level 6 conjuration spell, Arcane Gate, which creates 2 linked teleportation portals. Pretty solid entry. Functionally very useful item. Next is the Hat of Uproarious Laughter. When knocked prone, hostile creature with an intelligence of 5 or more within 30 feet of you must succeed a wisdom saving throw or become stricken with laughter. That's pretty silly looking, I think. The Tightening Orbit Helm. Do a cantrip called Tightening Orbit. Spend 1 turn of Force Conduit to pull every enemy in the radius towards you with damaging force. Looks like it has a 30-foot radius. There are a few other pieces of gear that provide you with that Force Conduit status, so I imagine this was intended to work alongside those. Next we have the Enforcer Helm. Whenever the wearer knocks a creature unconscious, the wearer regains 1d6 hit points and a +1 to Constitution saving throws. Now this item, I happen to know, is part of a set for an Enforcer, I would guess. So it has some synergy with items we'll look at in the near future. After that, we have the Brain Drain Cape. When the wearer succeeds a saving throw against any foe's spells or actions, that foe gains mental fatigue. Take a look at mental fatigue. Affected entity has -1 penalty to Wisdom, Intelligence, and Charisma saving throws for every turn remaining. When it fails a Wisdom, Intelligence, or Charisma saving throw while having 5 or more turns of this condition remaining, the entity takes 1 to 4 psychic damage and is no longer mentally fatigued. A personal favorite of mine, Saravok's Wretched Armor. All incoming damage is reduced by 2. That's an effect that exists in the game already. When you deal necrotic damage, you gain 1d6 temporary hit points. A melee attack hits you while you still have temporary hit points. You deal 1d6 piercing damage to all creatures within 10 feet. I assume that includes allies, which is a shame, but cool item. The Torment Drinker Armor. When scoring a critical hit or killing a hostile creature, wearer gains 15 temporary hit points. 15 is a lot. And we have a unique model. The Robe of Spell Resistance just gives a +2 to all saving throws. That's a pretty dope looking robe though. The Chain of Liberation. Once per turn, the wearer can reduce the duration of their momentum by 1 turn to sprint. I want to confirm, sprint is different than dash. Rush ahead in a straight line reduces the duration of your momentum by 1 turn. Doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. And again, unique model. The Robust Chain Shirt. When the wearer has 50% hit points or less and is damaged by a melee attack, they deal 1 to 4 piercing damage to the attacker. Similar model to the other with some palette swapping. On to gloves. We have the Pale Widow gloves. Provide a number of different actions. Ensnaring Strands, a level 1 conjuration spell. Your attack conjures thick, sticky webbing that possibly enwebs your target. Lasts for 10 turns. Pulling Web, which is a transmutation cantrip, deals 1 to 6 damage. Strike at a creature with a gossamer skin-adhering web and pull it 10 feet closer to you. And Web, a level 2 conjuration spell. Cover an area in thick, flammable webbing that slows creatures within and possibly enwebs them. Lasts for 10 turns. What those look like. I believe this model is shared with some of the other drow armor. The Gloves of Flint and Steel. When the wearer deals fire damage, the target must succeed a Constitution saving throw or begin burning. There are a few of these items that I would love to mix in with some of the builds I've been working on. That is one of them. We're going to have to zoom out a little bit to see these boots. Gargoyle boots. You might recognize as an item added to the Enhanced Edition, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. I think it was in 1. Gives a +2 to dexterity saving throws, and the Gargoyle's Countenance, level 4 abjuration spell. Become stone, gaining resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, and lasts for 10 turns. Pretty simple, solid looking boots. Risk Wind boots. After scoring a critical hit or killing a hostile creature, movement speed is restored to maximum. Now, if you have a melee-focused character who can do a ton of damage, these boots would allow you to make sure you are hitting everyone you can within a single turn. Next are the Featherlight boots. When the wearer has 50% hit points or less, their movement speed is increased by 10 feet. Sounds pretty reasonable. Another pair of relatively simple looking but solid boots. And the Shadow Step boots, which give you the Shadow Teleportation cantrip. Teleport to an unoccupied, obscured spot. Sounds a bit like Misty Step, but the spot needs to be obscured. and they resemble some other drow armor as well. Now, amulets won't have a cosmetic impact, so we can probably move through these pretty quickly. The Scarab of Protection. You have advantage on saving throws against spells. And Necromantic Evasion. When you fail a saving throw against necromancy spells or spells cast by undead foes, you can use your reaction to succeed instead. Next is the Lofty Sorcerer's Amulet. The amulet taps deep into your magical bloodline to increase your sorcery points by 1. The Krusnabir's Asylum Amulet gives you access to the Crown of Madness spell, a level 2 enchantment spell which instills madness in a humanoid enemy, making them attack the creature closest to them, other than you, even if it is allied. It lasts for 3 turns. And last amulet is Ilmater's Aid. Non-cantrip spells deal an additional 1 to 4 force damage. It actually says 1 to 4 force damage when the wearer drops to half their hit points or lower. We have some rings. The Ring of Beguiling gives access to the Charm Person spell, a level 1 enchantment spell. Charm a humanoid to prevent it from attacking you. You gain advantage on charisma checks in dialogue. It lasts 10 turns. The Hag's Ring, which provides access to the Vicious Mockery cantrip. Insult a creature. It has disadvantage on its next attack roll and takes 1 to 4 psychic damage. We have the Absolute Smite. Gives access to the Searing Smite, level 1 evocation spell. Deals 5 to 19 damage. Deal an extra 1 to 6 fire damage and set your target on fire. It takes 1 to 6 fire damage every turn and lasts 10 turns. The Ring of Fire, another one I really wish I had access to. When dealing fire damage, the wearer deals an additional 1 fire damage. The Sand Thief's Ring, which is another callback to Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 items, gives access to the invisibility spell. Touch a creature to turn it invisible. Attacks against it have disadvantage. It attacks with advantage. And that lasts 10 turns, or until the creature attacks or casts a spell. And final ring is the Ring of Crabsight, which I personally enjoy simply for the name. Equip this ring to increase your perception skill by 2. I'm not sure why, but apparently in Baldur's Gate 3, crabs are very perceptive. Now we can move on to weapons. I've included the shields within the weapons group. First up is the Impaler. Now on my fighter character, who has a strength of 17, dexterity of 14, this deals 7 to 25 damage. Deals an additional 1 to 10 piercing damage to targets that still have all of their hit points. When you reduce a target to 0 hit points, you gain 2 to 20 hit points that are temporary. Now there appears to be some confusion around which words needed to appear here. And it's a +2 weapon. Now we have the Arcane Absorption Dagger. On my fighter, deals 5 to 8 damage, 4 of which is force damage. A +1 weapon. When you kill an enemy with a melee attack, regain 1 of your spent first level spell slots. That might sound pretty impressive until we get to an item we'll talk about very soon. Next we have the Combination Axe. My fighter deals 5 to 14 damage. When you score a critical hit, you can spend a bonus action to make an additional attack. A +1 weapon. The proficiency gives access to Press the Advantage, which is this exact description. Now there's Alandra's Whelm. An interesting name. On my fighter, this trident deals 7 to 17 damage, 1d4 of which is cold. It is a +2 item. Can be thrown. Got a nice little frost effect to it. Now some of the hidden functionality items. The dart +2 means at some point Larian invested a little bit of time working on implementing darts as a ranged weapon. You can see it does not quite anchor to the model very effectively, but 1d4 +4 piercing damage is a +2 weapon on my fighter. Next up is the Flail of Dread Skulls. Looks like a pretty regular flail. My fighter deals 5 to 12 damage, a +1 weapon, and grants access to the Tenacity passive feature, which we've seen on other weapons in the game. Now the Rebound Battle Axe apparently goes in your left hand. It's a versatile weapon. My fighter deals 5 to 14 damage. This blade's magical powers only function if it is bound to an Eldritch Knight. I assume this is also true of the Warlock's Pact weapon, but I'm not entirely sure. I know that there is a different ability for setting a Pact weapon and setting a bound weapon. But if you are playing an Eldritch Knight, it will get these bonuses. This weapon has a +1 bonus to damage and attack rolls. This weapon has the thrown property and deals an additional 1 to 4 thunder damage when thrown. Now we have the Executioner Sword. This is one of the weapons I have mentioned that is game-breaking. When you kill a creature, you can cast a level 1 spell without expending a spell slot. This does not end after the first time you cast a spell. So you just retain liberated spell casting until you long rest, I think. Actually, it might be kind of permanent. You just get 1 kill with this weapon, and you can infinitely cast level 1 spells. That means between fights, infinite healing, or even in fights, you can always use your healing spells at level 1. Infinite magic missiles. There's a lot of really, really overpowered functionality you still have at level 1. But it doesn't affect upcasting those spells. So upcasted level 1 spells will still use whatever spell slot they would normally. Now we have the Planeslayer Flail. On my fighter deals 6 to 13 damage. When wielded against Fey, Fiends, or Undead foes, this weapon has a 1d4 bonus to damage and attack rolls. Grants access to Tenacity. Plus, it's shiny and golden. Now the Staff of Accretion. The wearer gains Arcane Charge when they deal damage with close quarter range spells or cantrips. My fighter deals 5 to 12 damage. It is versatile. The Spider Step Staff deals 4 to 11 damage on my fighter and grants immunity to being enwebbed. Your movement speed is not affected by web surfaces. Seems like something that we would find in the underground area beneath the Blighted Village. The Mind Sundering Dagger deals 6 to 12 damage on my fighter, 1d4 of which is psychic. Is really all. The Brewing Ladle, a pretty enormous model. A +1 weapon that deals 5 to 8 damage on my fighter. This model looks pretty similar to what we see one of the Thorm enemies in the Shadow Cursed lands use. I imagine this was intended to be a drop that players could then pick up and use, but it was abandoned pretty quickly after being suggested, and that's why there aren't too many buffs to the item. It's just a +1 club, I think. Light hammer, sorry. Now the Goblin's Bane dagger deals 4 to 7 damage on my fighter. Goblins have disadvantage on attack rolls against the wielder. Seems like it could be pretty useful for Act 1 and then pretty useless afterwards. Enforcer Club. Seems like it goes pretty well with that Enforcer helmet. Non-lethality. This weapon deals only non-lethal damage. Deals 5 to 8 damage on my fighter and has a +1. The Dagger of Shar. Deals 5 to 13 damage on my fighter, 1d6 of which is necrotic. But only when not standing in sunlight. And finally, Scythe of Merkel, which I apparently cannot equip. That's a shame. Does have a pretty cool looking model. Gives access to the Reaper Scythe class action. Swing your weapon in a large arc that knocks targets back 10 feet. Deals 2d12 plus 3 slashing and 3d6 necrotic damage. Now we have 2 shields to look at. Shield of Returning. The shields bind to your being, returning to your hand if thrown. We have a throwing shield. It could be Captain America. I am interested to see if... here we go. This model shows up when I equip a weapon. It does. And the Enforcer Shield. When a creature misses the wielder with an attack, they gain 1d4 bonus to their next attack roll that deals non-lethal damage. This bonus is relinquished when the wielder deals lethal damage. So, seems to fit with our Enforcer helmet and Enforcer club. We have some ranged weapons. I accidentally mixed the dart in with the melee, but we'll be going through all of them anyway. The Magical Hand Crossbow. When you shoot a target at close range, you can make an additional melee attack against it as a reaction. +2 weapon. Deals 5 to 10 damage on my fighter. And appears to have glowing string. Pretty cool looking. The Light Crossbow of Speed, a reference to an item in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. I personally love this item and wish it were in the game, but I do understand that it is a bit excessive. Gives access to the Blink of an Eye bolt weapon action. Make a ranged attack with your equipped weapon as a bonus action. Personally, I kind of wish I could give this to Gale. He could cast whatever spell he wanted, and then still have a ranged attack to follow it up. Last but not least, although possibly least, Sling, which looks very silly looking, probably because this was never fully implemented. But it deals 3 to 6 damage, and represents a new weapon class that we don't see anywhere else in the game. And that'll do it for the inaccessible items I wanted to cover in this video. Feel free to let me know what your favorite was, or if you'd like to see any of the other inaccessible items that I thought were less interesting than these. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video and want to see some of the other discussions we have regarding Baldur's Gate 3 or gaming in general. And feel free to provide feedback using that like button if you enjoyed the video. Thank you guys for hanging out. Hopefully I will see you in another one of the videos on the channel.